Elias lived in the comforting glow of perceived wisdom. People sought his counsel. They nodded at his pronouncements. He moved through his days with the quiet assurance of a man who understood the map of life, believed he held its compass firmly in hand. His self-image was a polished mirror reflecting back a figure of competence, reason, and depth. He thought this understanding was innate, a gift of his sharp mind. He believed his reactions, his choices were his own, forged in the crucible of his intellect. He was, in his own narrative, the author of his self. Life, however, has a subtle way of introducing dissonances, not grand calamities but small, persistent whispers of unease. A recurring dream that felt strangely empty, a flicker of doubt in a loved one's eyes, a sense of acting from a script he didn't quite remember writing. The first crack appeared in a casual conversation. A friend, speaking of childhood, described Elias as a dutiful son. Elias, surprised, bristled internally. Dutiful? He was strong-willed, independent. But then, fragments of memory surfaced, pleasing his parents, seeking their approval, choosing paths that echoed their expectations, however subtly woven into his choices. The word dutiful resonated with a faint, unsettling truth. This initial tremor opened a fissure. He started noticing other echoes. His sharp wit, praised by colleagues, now sounded faintly performative, almost like a defense mechanism learned in youthful debates at the family dinner table. His calm demeanor, admired by many, felt more like a mask carefully constructed to avoid vulnerability, a lesson gleaned from observing his emotionally stoic father. The compass he thought he held began to spin erratically. The map felt less like his own carefully charted territory and more like a landscape imposed upon him, shaped by the expectations of his upbringing, the quiet pressures of his social circle, the reflected desires in the eyes of those he loved and respected. He started to question, not with grand philosophical inquiries in echoing halls, but in the quiet solitude of his evenings. He began to journal, not to record achievements or plan strategies, but to simply trace the roots of his thoughts and feelings. Like excavating an old city, he uncovered layers upon layers of conditioning. Phrases his mother used, reactions his father modeled, the silent approvals and disapprovals that had sculpted his behavior more effectively than any spoken word. He saw the contours of his personality, not as his own creation, but as an intricate echo chamber of influences. The self he believed in, the wise man in the polished mirror, began to blur, to lose definition, replaced by a ghost of collective expectations. This realization wasn't a dramatic collapse, but a slow, quiet crumbling of an illusion. There was no thunderbolt, just the persistent drip of understanding eroding the foundations of his self-certainty. It was humbling, unsettling, yet strangely liberating. The polished mirror, once reflecting back a figure of authority, now seemed clouded, less defined. But behind the cloudiness, a faint, unfamiliar light began to glimmer. It wasn't the sharp, assured light of assumed wisdom, but a softer, warmer glow. He started listening to his heart, not as a source of emotion to be controlled by reason, but as a quiet voice that had been long suppressed beneath layers of learned behavior. He started to feel genuinely deeply beyond the expected reactions, beyond the conditioned responses. The path ahead was not of certainty, but of exploration, not of knowing, but of discovering. He was shedding the skin of his conditioned self, like an old garment that no longer fit. He was stepping into the dawn of a new understanding, uncertain, vulnerable, yet filled with a quiet, nascent joy. He was finding enlightenment not in the accolades of others, nor in the echo of societal expectations, but in the quiet resonance of his own genuine heart, a compass truer than any he had held before. His purpose wasn't dictated by life's demands, but whispered from within, a quiet revolution of the soul, defined not by conditions, but by the boundless potential of an authentic self finally coming into being.